Morgan, and today I will be presenting on examining the relationship between perception of racial discrimination and academic performance. I conducted this study my junior year at Winston-Salem State University, which is a minority-serving institution. So the reason I decided to conduct this research is because most of the research done on perception of racial discrimination is not done using African Americans. Most of the research is on Caucasians and Asian Americans, and there's some out there on Latinos, but not much on African Americans. And the research that is done uses African American students who attend predominantly white institutions. There's hardly no research done on students who attend minority-serving institutions such as historically black colleges and universities. So here's a little background. Brazado in 2008, he conducted a study using 409 junior high school students, and he used Latinos, Asian Americans, and Caucasians. He asked the participants to use 3 questionnaires. The questionnaires concerned academic achievement, academic motivation, and the last one was stress related to race. So just some findings from his study. Latino students perceived adult discrimination more than Asian Americans, but Asian Americans found peer discrimination to be more salient than Latinos and Caucasians. It was also found that negative perceptions of racial discrimination was found to be risk factors for negative academic and psychosocial outcomes. One other thing that I found to be interesting between this is that adult discrimination was found to be a negative risk factor for, adult discrimination was found to be a negative risk factor for academic achievement, while peer discrimination was found to be a negative risk factor for academic motivation, meaning that when students felt they were discriminated by adults, they were just more likely just to not do well in their classes, but if they were discriminated by their peers, they just didn't have the motivation to do better. So as I said before, this is made up of 3 studies, but I will only be discussing 2 today. My first hypothesis is students who reach scenarios with high GPAs will be less affected by perception of racial discrimination than students who reach scenarios with low GPAs. My second study hypothesis is that minority students with high perceptions of racial discrimination will have higher academic performance than minority students with low perceptions of racial discrimination and majority students with high and low perceptions of racial discrimination. I chose this to be my hypothesis because I figured if minority students have high perceptions of racial discrimination and they're already a minority, people would expect them to not do well. So they would use this as motivation to achieve their goals and succeed. In study 1, I used a one-way ANOVA. All the participants were gathered using convenient sampling, and they were randomly assigned into 3 groups. The 3 groups were high GPA, low GPA, and GPA not being mentioned. So in all 3 scenarios, there was a young lady named Janelle, and she was a college student who felt that her professor was discriminating against her because of her race. And Janelle either had a 4.0, a 2.0, or her GPA wasn't told at all. And participants were asked to answer 3 questions about Janelle's GPA and how her perception of racial discrimination would affect her GPA. The independent variable in this study was GPA. The dependent variable would have been perception of racial discrimination. As 28 participants, the mean age was 24, and the mean GPA was 3.08, which is about average GPA for a college student. These are the results from study 1. The first question asked how well do you think Janelle would do in her class based off her perception of racial discrimination, and it was found that perception of racial discrimination had a significant effect on how well Janelle would do in her classes. As you can see here, there was a very large effect size of 0.32. Also, a planned contrast was conducted, and it was found that students who read scenarios where Janelle had a higher GPA predicted that she would do better in her classes than students who read scenarios with a low GPA or where her GPA was not mentioned. Second question asks, did Janelle's perception of racial discrimination have an effect on her GPA decreasing? It was found that her perception of racial discrimination did not have an effect on her GPA decreasing. A very large effect size of 0.38. And then again, I asked, did perception of racial discrimination have an effect on Janelle's GPA at all? And it was found that it does have a significant effect on her GPA. It was a large effect size of 0.24. Assuming because in this question we asked, did you think her GPA would decrease, and there was not a significant effect size. So I assumed that it would be a positive effect on her GPA, racial discrimination. Okay, here is a chart that shows what I was talking about when I said that students who read scenarios where Janelle had a higher GPA predicted that she would do better in her classes than students who read scenarios with a low GPA or where her GPA wasn't mentioned. And this also shows that students who read scenarios where Janelle had no mention of a GPA predicted that there would be no decrease in her GPA because of her perception of racial discrimination, which would have been here. And here shows students who read scenarios where Janelle had a low GPA predicted that racial discrimination would, as assumed, positively affect her GPA. To one of four groups. The four groups were either a minority student with a high perception of racial discrimination, a minority student with a low perception of racial discrimination, a student in the majority with a high perception of racial discrimination, or a student in the majority with a low perception of racial discrimination. Minority and majority would classify under their racial classification, and their perception, either high or low perception of racial discrimination, is the perception of racial discrimination. As I said before, we used four scenarios. The independent variables was racial classification and perception of racial discrimination. And the dependent variable was academic performance. This study used 26 participants, 22 were black and 4 were white, and the mean age of the study was 24. I didn't ask for a GPA in this study. In study 2, I used a 2x2 factorial design. To gather participants for the study, I used convenient sampling, and all the participants were randomly assigned to one of four groups. Okay. Here are my results from study 2. It was found that there was no significant main effect found for race on academic achievement. As you can see, the significance level is 0.68, and the main effect is 0.01. Sorry, the effect size is 0.01. And it was also found that there was nearly a significant main effect found for perception of racial discrimination on academic achievement. As you can see here, it is 0.09, but the cutoff level is 0.05, so it's almost there, but not quite. However, a large effect size of 0.12 was found for this question. Sorry, for this main effect. And there was no significant interaction found for perception of racial discrimination and racial classification on academic achievement. There was a high significance level, but there was an extremely low main effect size here, which is 0.002. And I found that to be interesting. A chart showing that the means of standard deviations for the effect of academic achievement on racial classification and perception of racial discrimination. So here you can see that minority students who had low perceptions of racial discrimination rated Alex to have a higher GPA than students who read scenarios about minorities with high perception of racial discrimination. And also you can see here, in the majority, students who read scenarios where Alex was a member of the majority with a low perception of racial discrimination also rated Alex to have a higher perception, to have a higher GPA. This kind of disproves my theory of students in the minority with a high perception of racial discrimination would have higher GPAs because of the resilience factor. But as you can see here, it shows that minority students with low and majority students with low perceptions of racial discrimination will have higher GPAs. And actually majority students with low GPA, with low perception of racial discrimination had the highest GPAs of all. Here is a chart just showing what the previous graph just showed. Once again, minority students with low perceptions of racial discrimination had higher GPAs than minority students with high perception of racial discrimination. And right here, majority students with low perception of racial discrimination had higher GPA rating than majority students with high perception of racial discrimination. Okay, so just some general discussion points. One limitation of these studies were that I feel there may have been some response bias because of some of the demographic information that I asked about GPA, and some of the students didn't feel quite comfortable releasing their true GPAs because they thought it would be used against them or maybe had been given out. But I assured all the students that it was just for comparison factors with the scenarios, and that no one else would see their GPAs besides me while I was analyzing it, and I wouldn't even know it was related to them. A strength of these studies were that mainly African Americans were used in these studies. About 95% of the participants were African Americans, which is good because, as I stated before, most of the research done in this area is not done using minority students who attend. It's not done using African Americans at all, and it's not done using African Americans who attend historically black colleges and institutions, minority and certain institutions. One implication, if I could have done this study over, I would do it in a lab setting where it's more quiet and the students can focus and not have so many distractions, because these studies were conducted in classrooms where other studies were being conducted, and it was very talkative and very noisy, so I feel maybe the results would have changed a little if it was in a lab setting where they could have focused. This is my reference, Rosado. I referenced him in the beginning. I would like to thank Don Henderson and Amber Devona for helping me with this research. I initially started this research in Don Henderson's class, and I finished it in Amber Devona's. Okay. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, thank you.